Is it hot or is it not? Let's find out. Welcome back to the channel, Book Dragons. I'm so glad you're here with me. I've got a really fun tag video that I'm going to do today. Before I get started with it though, please make sure that if you enjoy the video, I would love it if you would support me by liking the video, subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already, and make sure that you check out the link in my description below to my link tree. That will give you all the destinations that you can find me at, including my Discord, which you really should join. And if you like, you can scan the QR code right here, okay? So with all that being said, let's get right to the tag. So I saw this tag, which is called the Bookish A to Z Hot or Not tag on Fred's channel over at Read by Fred. And I also saw my good friend Bad at Bad is Rad 2. You should check both of them out. I saw both of those awesome booktubers do this tag, and I thought, well, you know, that's a pretty cool tag. I think I might like to do that. I wasn't tagged by anybody that I know of, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, without further ado, let's get to it. And this is all about whether you like something or you don't like something, essentially. So we're going to go ahead and go for it. Get my eyes on here so I can read the prompts. There we go. And let's get to it. Okay, so hot or not. And this was created by Greg at A Bibliophile Reads, just so you're aware. Just thought I'd throw that out there because it's important to tag the creator if, you know, they created it. So the first prompt is audiobooks, hot or not. Could I say lukewarm? No. I would say hot with exceptions. So I do like audiobooks, but I typically only read nonfiction with audiobooks. With a few exceptions, I have read some fiction with audiobooks, and it's worked out well for me. So I'm going to say hot because overall, I think audiobooks are very valuable, and it's a great way to experience a book. Okay? The letter B, Bildungsroman. I hope I pronounced that right. I probably didn't, but in any case, it means dealing with a person's formative years or spiritual education. Hot or not. I think that's hot. It's really fascinating to learn about people's backgrounds in all different respects, whether it be spiritual or anything else. You know, learning about their backstory and their upbringing. I think that's kind of cool. And I think that's what this is kind of referring to. Although maybe it's biographies, in which case that's not really my thing. I'm not sure. But very, very, very cool, I think. C, children's books. I would say yes, it's hot in the respect that I have very fond memories of the children's books that I read to my kids when they were little. I'm sure some of those books will become favorites of my grandkids if I ever have grandkids. So, yeah, they're hot, but like I personally don't really read children's books, but I think they're cool. There's some great children's books out there. So, D is for digital. Absolutely. I love digital books. If this is referring to ebooks, e-readers, things like that, I love digital stuff. I'm totally down to read digital books. So that is hot. E is for experimental. And I'm gonna say not on this. This is one of those situations where I think the book in question experiments with a lot of weird and off-the-wall stuff that you would not expect from a normal fiction novel, fantasy novel, things like that. I do like weird stuff, but sometimes it can get too experimental for me. So I'm going to say not. Fantasy. Hot. So hot. Scorching hot. I'm just like, psst, that's hot. Graphic novels. hot. Definitely. I love graphic novels. I'm not a huge graphic novel reader, but the graphic novels that I have read, I absolutely love. They're a big part of my enjoyment of reading. So yes, I'd say that is hot. Horror. Hot. Definitely. Depends on the horror, of course. I don't get into any of the real extreme stuff, but I do love me some horror. So yes, hot. Inspirational. Sometimes, yes. I have read nonfiction books specifically that are inspirational, telling a beautiful story about someone's life and things like that. So it's cool, but it's not really for me. So I'm going to say not there. Journalism. No, I'm not really big into reading journalistic entries and articles and things like that. Some I do. Some are very interesting, but in general, not really my thing. K is for quiche. Has a popular or sentimental appeal. I don't really totally understand that one, so I'm gonna say not. Although it is good to have things that appeal to your sentimentality, I guess, but I'm not actually sure on that one, so I'm gonna say not. L is for library. Absolutely, that's very hot. I don't use my library as much as I probably should, but I do love the library. Yeah, so that's hot. M is for mystery. Absolutely hot. I love a good mystery novel. You guys know I talk about Agatha Christie all the time. I love her stuff. So yeah, give me some good mystery novels. I'm a happy camper. That's very hot. N is for nonfiction. It is hot sometimes. You know, like I mentioned earlier, I usually do nonfiction on audiobook. I've read a few nonfiction books physically as well or on ebook, but usually it's audiobook, and I enjoy them as long as I get to choose the topic. Like when I was in school, a lot of the nonfiction we read was just bland and I hated it. So I'm very selective with nonfiction, but yes, it's hot. O is for omnibus, which refers to a bind-up of 2 or 3 books in one volume. And yeah, that's definitely hot. I have several omnibi on my bookshelf, and I love omnibuses. The only thing is they tend to be a lot heavier and harder to hold. So while I do think they're hot, the strength in my hands doesn't always think they're hot. All right, let's move on to P, poetry. It's hot. Depending on the poetry. Like I'm not a huge poetry fan, but some poetry really resonates with me, so absolutely, poetry is definitely hot. Q is for quests. When the protagonist goes on a physical or spiritual quest. And I would say that's definitely hot. I love quest stories. One of my favorites will always be The Lord of the Rings. You know, Frodo goes on a quest to take the ring to be destroyed in the fires of Mount Doom. And it's awesome. I love quest stories. So yes, give me some quests. R is for romance. Not. Romance is not for me. Now, I do read some books that have romantic elements in it. And that's fine. But romance novels, yeah, not my thing. S is for science fiction. That is definitely hot. I love a good science fiction story. I'm not as well read in science fiction as I am in fantasy, but I love me a good sci-fi story, so that is hot. Translation, books translated from one language into another. Yeah, I'd say that's hot. Depending on the book, I'm sure, of course, but I've read some really great translated works. The first 2 or 3 books of the Witcher series I enjoyed, and that's translated from Polish. I really enjoyed The Three-Body Problem, which is translated from Chinese. So yeah, I think it's hot. It's definitely hot. U is for Übermensch, the Superman or the extraordinary human, characters who can do everything. That is definitely hot for me. Sometimes it gets a little old, I'll be honest, but overall, I do think it's hot. Like, Superman in the comics is of course, the classic example of this. He's great. I like Superman. He's not my favorite by any stretch of the imagination, but I like him. And so, yeah, I like stories like that. V is for Victorian, literature from 1837 to 1901. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's not. I'm just being honest. Like, I love Bram Stoker's Dracula. I thought Frankenstein was just okay. It wasn't totally my cup of tea, but there were good elements of it. I love the picture of Dorian Gray. And so I've read very little in Victorian era literature, so I guess I can't really answer this too adequately, but some of what I've read has been really great. Some of it has not. So yeah, I'd say it really depends on what the book is, whether it's hot or not. In general, I guess I'll say hot. W is for Western. Not my thing. I mean, with exceptions, I really love the Dark Tower series, which has Western elements, but it's not really a Western. It's more of just like an amalgamation of lots of different genres. But just straight Westerns, definitely not. Not my cup of tea. X is for X-rated. For me, depending on the book, right? Like I don't like smut. I won't read smut. But I will read books that have elements of that in it. So, I've read the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R. R. Martin. That does have a lot of X-rated stuff in it. I've read other books that have stuff like that in it, like Rising Sun by Michael Crichton, things like that. So there's books I've read that I have really enjoyed that have stuff like that in it. But I don't really read smut. One book that is on my list to read is Cushiel's Dart, and from what I understand, that's a very steamy fantasy series. So I'm definitely intrigued by that, and I do enjoy some of that on occasion. So, yep, I'm gonna say it's hot. Y is for young adult. It depends, but in general, I'm gonna say hot, because I have read some really, really good young adult books. I've also read some that aren't very good, but in general, I'm definitely open to reading young adult, so I'm going to say hot. And the final one, the letter Z, is Zeitgeist, the spirit or mood of the times. I think for the most part, this is hot. Of course, a lot depends, right? A lot of these could go both ways, really. But I think overall, Zeitgeist is pretty cool, so I'm going to say hot. And that is the end of this tag, guys. So I'm all done with it. Let me know what you thought of my answers in the comments below. And now I've got to tag someone. So let's see. Who am I going to tag? I'm going to tag John over at Talking Story. I think he would really enjoy doing this tag, and I would like to see him do this tag. I'm not really sure if Rebecca over at Rebecca Nicole Reads has done this tag, but I'm going to tag her. And I'm also going to tag Joe and Mary over at Book Buds. I would like to see them do this tag. And that's it, guys. If you're watching this and you have a channel and you have not done this tag, you can consider yourself tagged too. Just feel free to play right along with me. I just stole this off of somebody else's channel. They didn't even tag me, so it's up for grabs. It's free game. So make sure that you chat with me in the comments about what I talked about today. And until next time, guys, have fun. Make sure you read more books, and I'll talk with you soon.